Every woman desires a man she can't control, not because she wants chaos, but because somewhere deep within her nature, she is drawn to the power of a man who stands firm, who doesn't bend easily, who doesn't lose his center when emotions rise. For generations, men have been told that the path to a woman's heart is through constant kindness, endless effort, and unconditional attention. They were told to be sweet, to always listen, to always give. But where has that led most men? To rejection, confusion, and silent heartbreak. Because attraction has never been born from comfort. It is born from tension, from the magnetic pull between confidence and mystery. And no one understood that tension better than Niccolò Machiavelli. Machiavelli was not a lover. He was a strategist, a man who looked beyond emotions and saw the hidden patterns of human behavior. His lessons were not about romance, but about power, control, and perception. Yet these same principles that build empires can also build attraction. Because when you strip away the illusions, love itself becomes a battlefield of psychology, a negotiation of dominance, respect, and emotional control. The man who understands psychology, who can read emotions but not be ruled by them, is the man who controls attraction itself. So let me ask you, what if attraction isn't about chasing? What if it's about mastering silence, distance, and unpredictability? What if you could flip the entire game without saying a single word? That's what Machiavelli teaches us, not through manipulation or deceit, but through understanding the deepest truth of human nature. People crave what they can't control. And in this video, I'll reveal the 5 hidden rules inspired by Machiavelli's mindset. Rules that don't just make women attracted, but make them obsess over you. But before we dive into those rules, you need to understand the emotional battlefield you're already standing on. We live in a time where emotional weakness has been disguised as love. Men are told to open up endlessly, to pour out every thought, every wound, every insecurity, as if doing so automatically earns affection. But vulnerability without strength is not connection, it's exposure. Emotion without discipline leads only to chaos. You cannot lead a woman or even lead yourself if you are constantly a slave to your own feelings. That's why Machiavelli wrote, "It is better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both." He wasn't preaching cruelty, he was preaching respect. Because in every human relationship, romantic or otherwise, the one who is respected first is loved the deepest. Think about it. How many times have you been the nice guy, the man who's always available, always understanding, always forgiving? You text first, you apologize first, you chase first. You make her your priority while she makes you her option. And then you wonder why she grows cold, why she loses interest. The answer is simple. You gave her all the power, and once power is given freely, it's never respected again. Machiavelli's world was filled with kingdoms that rose and fell because of perception. And your relationships are no different. They rise and fall on how you are perceived. If she sees you as desperate, she loses desire. If she sees you as calm and detached, she becomes curious. If she sees you as confident and grounded, she becomes addicted. The paradox of attraction is that the less you need her, the more she needs you. Machiavelli understood something eternal. Human beings are slaves to their emotions. The one who can control emotion controls people. When a man reacts from impulse, he loses power. But when he acts from strategy, he becomes magnetic. You don't win hearts by chasing, you win them by becoming the prize. Every great seducer and leader throughout history lived by that law. Control the frame, and you control the game. This is where most men fail. They think attraction is built through effort, constant texting, proving loyalty, chasing validation. But effort doesn't create desire. Mystery does. Women don't fantasize about what's easy to get. They desire what's slightly out of reach, what keeps them guessing. And that's the brilliance of Machiavelli's philosophy. His laws of power can be applied directly to the laws of attraction because both are about control, not control over others, but over yourself. Being Machiavellian doesn't mean being manipulative or cold. It means being aware, seeing through the illusions, understanding how emotion works, and mastering your reactions instead of being ruled by them. When you master your calm within the chaos, you instantly become rare. Because most men can't handle silence. They can't handle uncertainty. They can't handle not knowing where they stand. They panic, they chase, they beg, but the Machiavellian man doesn't. He knows silence can be seductive. He knows distance builds curiosity. He knows unpredictability breeds obsession. So when I say the 5 hidden rules that make women beg you, I'm not talking about tricks or manipulation. I'm talking about psychological dominance, the quiet, centered power that comes from self-control. It's about being unshaken while everyone else reacts. It's about being grounded, focused, and calm. Because when you carry that kind of energy, she feels it. In your words, in your silence, and even in your absence. You no longer chase her attention. She offers it freely. You no longer try to prove your worth. She feels it naturally. You no longer control her, because she willingly gives you control. Most men spend their lives begging for love, believing that if they just love harder, she'll finally see their value. But love without strength turns into worship, and worship kills desire. You can't be both the king and the servant. You have to choose your role. When you choose to lead, when you learn to hold your frame, no matter what happens, you stop being one of many and become the one she can't forget. That's the path of Machiavelli. Not the path of manipulation, but the path of mastery. You master your words, your actions, and your emotions. And once you do, everything around you begins to shift. You'll start noticing how attraction becomes predictable, how respect becomes natural, how power becomes silent yet undeniable. Because the man who can stay centered in chaos wins without trying. So as we step into Machiavelli's world, remember this isn't about pretending to be confident or acting like someone you're not. It's about understanding human nature so deeply that you stop reacting to it and start commanding it. The moment you master yourself, you stop chasing and start attracting. And when you reach that level of emotional control, women don't just like you, they crave you. Because every woman desires a man she can't control. Be that man, calm, strategic, and untouchable. And when you master yourself, you master the game. Power is never lost in one moment. It slips away quietly. The moment you begin to chase, the moment you start needing her approval, her reply, her affection more than she needs yours. From that instant, the dynamic shifts. You stop being the prize, you become the pursuer. And Machiavelli warned centuries ago, he who depends on others lives like a slave. The man who depends on a woman's validation, on her reactions, on her moods, becomes her emotional servant. He trades his crown for comfort, and in that trade, he loses everything. When you chase, you announce that she has something you lack, that her attention defines your value. But attraction doesn't work that way. The more you chase, the further she runs, because deep down, she senses that the balance of power has tilted. She feels that you've entered her frame, her emotional world, instead of standing firm within your own. And that, right there, is where desire dies. To control the frame means to control the emotional tone of the interaction. Every conversation, every glance, every silence between two people has a frame, an invisible context that decides who leads and who follows. The one who sets that emotional tone becomes the unspoken leader, The other unconsciously adapts. When you're calm, she feels steady. When you're uncertain, she feels the urge to pull away. When you chase, she senses your need and instinctively loses respect. Imagine two people standing face to face. One is grounded, breathing slowly, eyes steady, voice measured. The other is fidgeting, trying to impress, talking too fast, waiting for approval. You don't need words to know who holds the power. The calm one does, not because he demands it, but because he doesn't seek it. That is frame control. It's silent authority. Not loud, not aggressive, but undeniable. Machiavelli understood that control is never about force. It's about perception. People follow those who seem certain of themselves. They trust that man who appears unmoved by praise or rejection. When you show that her opinion can shift your mood, you become predictable. But when you remain composed, when you can face silence without flinching, you become magnetic. Women are drawn to certainty because it promises safety, emotional, psychological, even spiritual. Think of it like this. In every interaction, there's a king and there's a courtier. The courtier seeks approval, flatters, adapts. The king observes, listens, and chooses. Women are biologically drawn toward the king, not because of his looks or wealth, but because he embodies self-sufficiency. His emotions are not up for negotiation. His validation cannot be bought with attention. When you chase, you become the courtier. When you hold your frame, you become the king. Picture the scene. A woman is testing you, pulling back, delaying replies, trying to see if you'll react. Most men panic. They double text, they explain, they overcompensate. But the Machiavellian man doesn't move. He stays silent. He lets her wonder. That silence becomes louder than any message. Suddenly, she's the one refreshing the chat, replaying moments, asking herself why he isn't chasing. The power dynamic flips, because now she's in your frame. You see, attraction is psychological gravity. It flows towards strength. When you chase, you signal emotional weakness, neediness. Neediness tells her you have no abundance. And women, whether they admit it or not, are drawn to abundance, to a man whose world is already full. When you stop chasing, you communicate, I am whole without you. And that message, spoken through your behavior, is irresistible. Frame control doesn't mean arrogance. It's not about being rude or detached to prove a point. It's about emotional leadership, guiding the interaction without being reactive. A man with frame doesn't need to raise his voice or play games. His calm is his weapon. His composure is his power. When a woman throws emotional storms, he doesn't fight them, he absorbs them. Like a mountain facing the wind, unmoved. That stillness, that calm resistance commands respect. In modern relationships, most men have forgotten this art. They chase out of fear of losing her, fear of being alone, fear of missing their chance. But fear is the enemy of attraction. You cannot attract from fear. You can only attract from abundance. Chasing comes from scarcity, from believing that she is your only source of happiness. But when you operate from abundance, you move differently. You're not impressed by attention, you appreciate it. You're not desperate for connection, you invite it. And if she withdraws, you let her go. Not as punishment, but as proof that you never needed her to begin with. Machiavelli wrote for princes surrounded by betrayal, yet his words apply perfectly to love. The ruler who depends on his allies becomes their puppet. Likewise, the man who depends on a woman's validation becomes her puppet. True dominance is not about control over others, but control over self. You can't own her attention until you own your emotions. Let's bring it to the real world. Imagine a man constantly seeking validation, liking all her posts, replying instantly, complimenting her every hour. At first, she enjoys the attention. It feels flattering, But soon the excitement fades. Why? Because she knows exactly where he stands. There's no challenge, no uncertainty, no polarity. On the other hand, imagine a man who appreciates her beauty but doesn't overemphasize it, who takes hours to reply because he's genuinely busy, who compliments sparingly, and only when he means it. She starts wondering what he's thinking. That curiosity becomes attraction. Ignoring validation doesn't mean being distant or cold. It means not letting her behavior define your state. If she praises you, smile, but stay centered. If she ignores you, don't spiral. Stay centered. The one who controls the emotional rhythm of the relationship controls the relationship. That's frame control. In ancient courts, kings never chased favor. People came to them. Not because the king was arrogant, but because his stillness implied worth. Everyone wants what seems rare. Everyone respects what doesn't beg for attention. The same rule applies in modern attraction. When you're calm, composed, and self-contained, you project high status. You stop being another option. You become an experience. Think of the man sitting alone in a crowded room. While others laugh loudly, overperform, or seek attention, he stays quiet, relaxed, present. He observes more than he speaks, and yet people notice him. They feel something different, a gravitational pull. That's what frame control looks like in motion. It's not loud confidence, it's quiet dominance. When you chase, you give away the power of mystery. Mystery is the oxygen of attraction. It keeps her imagination alive. The moment she knows she can have you at any time, the fantasy ends. Machiavelli would call this the collapse of perception. You destroy the illusion of value by revealing too much eagerness. But when you hold back, when your actions are deliberate, she begins to fill the silence with curiosity. She starts chasing clarity, and in that chase, she becomes emotionally invested. Here's the paradox. The less you try to impress her, the more impressive you become. Because indifference, when it comes from strength, radiates confidence. It signals that your value exists independent of her opinion. That is irresistible. Women are emotional creatures, but emotion responds to power, to certainty. The man who cannot be swayed by beauty or seduction commands both. Machiavelli would tell you, control is perception, not possession. You don't have to control her physically or emotionally. You simply control how you present yourself. The tone of your voice, the pace of your movements, the discipline of your silence. Frame control lives in these small, invisible details. A single calm look can communicate more authority than 1,000 words. Now let's break it down into practice. When she tests you with sarcasm, don't defend yourself. Smile. Change the topic. You just proved you're not reactive. When she delays her replies, don't chase. Mirror the energy. You just proved emotional independence. When she compliments you, accept it, but don't melt. You just proved self-belief. When she pulls away, don't panic. Focus on your world. You just proved strength. Every one of those moments builds your frame. Every silence adds to your power. Every refusal to chase shifts her psychology, because now she's the one seeking alignment with your energy. Think of a lion. It doesn't chase approval. It simply exists aware of its dominance. The jungle adjusts to its presence. The same is true for a man who controls the frame. His presence changes the emotional climate. When he enters a room, people feel it. Not because he's loud, but because he's unshakable. A woman feels safest and most attracted when she can trust a man's emotional steadiness. She wants to know that when she tests, he won't crumble. When she withdraws, he won't beg. When she gets emotional, he won't lose his ground. Because in her subconscious, steadiness equals protection, and protection equals desire. That's why chasing never works. It signals instability. It tells her, my emotions depend on yours. But holding frame tells her, My emotions depend on me. That's leadership. Now picture this visually, a slow motion scene of a woman trying to catch the man's eye, adjusting her hair, glancing his way, but he remains still, calm, unreadable, grounded. His silence becomes the loudest statement in the room. That's the cinematic symbol of frame control. He's not ignoring her to hurt her. He's simply absorbed in his own world, his own purpose. And that makes her lean in, because power isn't noise, it's presence. Frame control, at its core, is the art of being unaffected. It's emotional self-ownership. It's knowing that you don't have to chase energy. You are the energy. When you truly embody that, the dynamic reverses. She starts to initiate, to question, to pursue. Because women don't chase weakness, they chase certainty. And certainty only exists when you stop chasing validation. So the next time you feel the urge to reach out, to explain yourself, to win her back, pause. Take a breath. Remember the rule: whoever chases loses the power. You are not here to win approval. You are here to hold your frame. Let silence work for you. Let absence build value. Because in that stillness, attraction grows stronger. Machiavelli's wisdom echoes across centuries for a reason. Human nature hasn't changed. Power still belongs to the calm, to the strategic, to the man who refuses to be moved by impulse. Control the frame, and you control perception. Control perception, and you control desire. In the end, never forget, a king never runs after anyone. He simply builds a world so powerful that others want to be part of it. So don't chase women. Build your kingdom. Build your mind, your discipline, your presence. When your life itself becomes the prize, women will chase you. Hold your frame. Never chase, because the moment you do, the crown falls. Power begins to fade the moment you become predictable. The moment she knows exactly what you'll say, when you'll reply, how you'll react, the mystery dies. And when mystery dies, so does desire. Machiavelli warned, men desire novelty more than comfort. He understood something that most people still fail to see, that human nature craves uncertainty more than stability. We think we want comfort, but what truly keeps us alive, what keeps us emotionally awake, is mystery. In power, in politics, and in love, the same law applies. Familiarity breeds indifference. And indifference kills attraction faster than rejection ever could. Mystery is the oxygen of desire. It's what keeps her imagination alive. Because attraction doesn't live in facts, it lives in the unknown. The moment she feels she's figured you out, her mind begins to wander. The chase ends, the excitement fades. But when you remain unpredictable, slightly out of reach, her brain stays engaged. She begins to crave answers that never fully arrive. The human mind is addicted to questions, not answers. We are wired to seek closure, to resolve tension. When something or someone leaves us uncertain, the mind loops around it endlessly. That's why you can't stop thinking about a person who sends mixed signals, who's not fully clear, who gives just enough to keep you guessing. That tension is dopamine in disguise. The uncertainty creates reward anticipation, the same psychological mechanism that drives gambling, obsession, and addiction. In love, mystery is the trigger for that loop. So when you're always available, always explaining, always exposing every thought and feeling, you kill the game before it even starts. You give her certainty, and certainty is the death of attraction. Because attraction feeds on tension, on curiosity, on wondering. The more she wonders about you, the more she invests emotionally. The more she knows, the more she relaxes, and the more her desire fades. The Machiavellian man understands this balance. He reveals just enough to spark connection, but never so much that he becomes transparent. His silence has layers. His emotions have depth. His intentions are hinted, never declared. He moves like a chess master, deliberate, unreadable, patient. Let's break this down. Imagine you're texting a woman. Most men, when they like someone, respond instantly. They write long paragraphs, over-explain, fill every silence with words. But what does that signal? Predictability. She already knows the pattern. She texts, you reply. She pulls back, you chase. There's no suspense, no tension. It becomes routine. And routine is the enemy of romance. Now picture another kind of man. He replies when he chooses to. His messages are short but thoughtful. His words leave space for imagination. Sometimes he disappears for a day or two, not out of game playing, but because he's genuinely focused on his own world. When he returns, she feels a rush. That spike of dopamine that comes from uncertainty, resolved. Her brain rewards her for the win, for getting his attention again. That's the psychology of variable reward, the most powerful force behind addiction and emotional investment. Machiavelli understood that power comes from controlling perception. You never let people see your full hand. You let them see what serves your strategy, nothing more. In relationships, that means don't overshare. Don't give your entire story in one breath. Don't explain your emotions every time she asks. Let her discover pieces of you gradually, through experience, not through confession. Every unanswered question becomes a seed of intrigue. Every subtle detail left unexplained becomes a thread her mind can't stop pulling. Think about movies. The most unforgettable characters aren't the ones who reveal everything. They're the ones wrapped in mystery. You never quite know what they're thinking, yet every action feels intentional. That's what draws you in. You lean forward. You want to understand. Attraction works the same way. The moment she can read you like an open book, the story ends. Mystery isn't about manipulation. It's about restraint. It's about self-control. In a world where everyone overshares, the man who guards his inner world becomes fascinating because his silence isn't emptiness. It's presence. His unpredictability isn't confusion. It's confidence. Women are emotional detectives by nature. They love to analyze, to decode, to read between the lines. But if you give them all the lines too soon, the game ends before it begins. A woman's mind needs something to chase. Not a person, but a question. When she can't fully define you, she invests energy trying to. That energy turns into fascination. That fascination turns into attraction. Let's use a real-world analogy. Imagine walking through a museum. You pass a painting that shows everything clearly, bright, literal, obvious. You glance, appreciate it, and move on. But then you stop at a painting where shadows hide parts of the image, where the meaning isn't obvious. You tilt your head, step closer, try to figure out what it represents. You keep returning to it in your mind. That's the power of mystery. The same principle applies to attraction. What isn't fully revealed stays alive longer. When you're mysterious, she feels something she can't quite name. Curiosity mixed with desire. That's a rare emotion, and it's addictive. Machiavelli would call it controlled ambiguity. You let people see what you want them to see, but never everything. You lead them into curiosity while maintaining authority. So how does this look in real life? You don't post every detail of your day online. You don't rush to tell her where you are or what you're doing every hour. You don't explain every decision. You don't always respond immediately. You keep parts of your world private, your ambitions, your struggles, your plans. You let her earn access to your depth. Each time she learns something new about you, it feels like a reward. And the brain loves rewards, especially unpredictable ones. This is the dopamine reward loop in action. The brain releases dopamine not when it receives pleasure, but when it anticipates it. When the outcome is uncertain, dopamine spikes even higher. That's why she feels that thrill when you're a little unpredictable, when she's not sure what's coming next, when she can't fully read you. That's why mystery is more powerful than beauty. But don't confuse mystery with distance. Mystery isn't coldness, it's control. You can be warm, kind, and engaging, yet still mysterious. It's about balance. Give her just enough to feel connected, but not enough to feel certain. You're not hiding, you're pacing. You're letting the story unfold slowly. And that slow burn is far more intoxicating than instant transparency. In psychological terms, this is known as the uncertainty effect, the emotional high people feel when outcomes are unpredictable. Studies show that people feel more excitement when the reward is uncertain than when it's guaranteed. It's why slot machines are addictive, why cliffhangers keep us watching, and why unpredictable people are magnetic. The mind links uncertainty to potential reward. Maybe this will be amazing. And that thought keeps us hooked. When you're too available, you rob her of that experience. You give her certainty, and certainty is boring. You become the movie she's already seen, the book she's already finished. But when you remain mysterious, every encounter feels like a new chapter. She doesn't know where it's going, and that uncertainty keeps her invested. Machiavelli would say that a wise ruler never reveals all his motives, because mystery multiplies influence. When people can't predict you, they respect you more. They tread carefully. They value your attention more. The same is true in relationships. When she can't predict you, she treats your time as precious. She adjusts her energy to match yours. Now imagine the visual. Slow motion scenes of a woman glancing toward a man who seems lost in his own thoughts. He's calm, composed, quietly confident. He doesn't rush to entertain her. He simply exists in his space, unbothered. She studies him, searching for clues, wondering what he's thinking. Every silence becomes a question, every small smile a riddle. That's the energy of mystery, calm yet captivating. When you stop explaining yourself, you give her mind space to wander. She starts creating stories about who you are, what you feel, what you want. Her imagination does the work for you. The less you reveal, the more she invests mentally and emotionally. That's how desire deepens, not through exposure, but through curiosity. But here's the catch. Mystery only works when it's authentic. You can't fake depth. You must genuinely have a world she can't fully access, a purpose that doesn't revolve around her, a mind that thinks beyond her validation. The Machiavellian man isn't mysterious because he's pretending. He's mysterious because he's busy building his kingdom. His mind is occupied with purpose, vision, and creation. She senses that. And that sense of depth is what pulls her in. Mystery without substance is emptiness. Substance without mystery is boredom. The power lies in merging the two, depth with restraint. You give glimpses of who you are, but never the whole map. You let her feel there's always more to discover. In modern dating, most men ruin this balance by oversharing too soon. They reveal trauma, secrets, weaknesses, everything, hoping it will create connection. But connection built on overexposure isn't love, it's therapy. And therapy kills tension. The Machiavellian man knows that mystery keeps passion alive even years into a relationship. He never stops being a little unpredictable, a little unreadable. You can see this in powerful figures throughout history. The leaders, artists, and thinkers who became icons, none of them were fully known. People speculated about their motives, their emotions, their secrets. That speculation is what made them legendary. Complete transparency kills fascination. Partial revelation builds it. So be warm but unreadable. Be kind but selective. Be present but not predictable. Let her see your strength but never your desperation. Let her feel your affection but never your dependency. When she can't quite label you, she can't stop thinking about you. That's why Machiavelli's wisdom remains timeless. In both power and love, the same rule applies. Control what others can see. Give them symbols, not explanations. Appear open, but stay impenetrable. Because the moment they fully understand you, they stop respecting you. In the end, remember this: availability is comfort, but mystery is attraction. Comfort feels safe, but it doesn't excite. Mystery excites and keeps her chasing. So don't reveal every thought. Don't explain every move. Let your silence do the talking. Let your unpredictability spark curiosity, because curiosity is the beginning of desire, and desire is the foundation of power. Stay mysterious, not because you're hiding something, but because you are something rare, something deep, something that cannot be fully known. Because once she realizes she can't quite figure you out, she'll never stop trying. The more you talk, the more you expose your weaknesses. Machiavelli. Every word you speak is a door to your inner world. And the more doors you open, the easier it becomes for someone to walk right through you. Most men don't realize that silence is not emptiness. It's armor. In a world where everyone competes to be heard, the man who can stay quiet becomes unforgettable. When you speak less, you create distance. When you watch more, you create control. Silence turns ordinary moments into tension. It turns curiosity into craving. Because mystery doesn't just live in what you do, it lives in what you don't say. Machiavelli believed that power isn't about words, it's about restraint. He observed that rulers who spoke too freely invited rebellion. Those who remain silent maintain control through uncertainty. The same principle applies in attraction. The man who explains himself loses leverage. The man who observes holds it. Women don't fall for noise. They fall for presence. A man who doesn't rush to fill silence radiates self-possession. He seems composed, unshakable, grounded. His stillness speaks louder than any speech could. When a woman talks, she often reveals her emotions, her doubts, her curiosities. When you listen, truly listen, without rushing to reply, she begins to project value onto you. She starts to wonder what you're thinking, how you feel, what lies behind that calm gaze. That wondering becomes desire, because silence makes people imagine, and imagination is the birthplace of attraction. Picture this: you're sitting across from her. She talks about her day, her thoughts, her dreams. You lean back slightly, your body relaxed, your eyes focused on hers. You don't interrupt. You don't rush to impress her with stories or compliments. You simply listen, calm, unreadable, but attentive. That silence does something powerful. It makes her self-conscious in the best way. She starts adjusting her hair, playing with her words, trying to keep your attention. She begins to perform for your calm energy. You flip the dynamic. She's chasing your validation, not the other way around. Machiavelli would call this psychological dominance. When your words are rare, they become expensive. People value what they can't easily access. If you speak all the time, your words become cheap. But if you choose them with precision, every sentence hits deeper. This is why confident men don't overshare. They don't narrate every feeling. They don't explain their intentions. They don't fill silence with noise. They understand that silence is not awkward. It's magnetic. Silence forces people to pay attention. When you pause, when you look instead of speak, you create tension. And tension is what women crave. That subtle uncertainty that makes the moment feel alive. A Machiavellian man observes before he acts. He studies the room, the energy, the tone. He notices what others miss, how she shifts her weight, how her voice changes, what her eyes avoid. Every small detail becomes data, because observation is power. The more you see, the less you need to speak. When you master this, you become unpredictable. You stop reacting emotionally, you respond strategically. And nothing is more attractive to a woman than a man who cannot be emotionally manipulated. Most men ruin attraction by talking too much, explaining themselves, defending their choices, seeking reassurance. But when you are calm and quiet, she starts trying to decode you. She wants to know what's behind that silence. She wants to draw words out of you. And in trying, she invests emotionally. Silence flips the script. It makes her chase understanding instead of giving it. Let's go deeper into the psychology. Silence creates what psychologists call the projection effect. When someone doesn't reveal themselves fully, others fill the gaps with their imagination. They project qualities, strength, intelligence, confidence, onto the blank space. The less you show, the more they idealize. Women especially are emotional storytellers. When you don't reveal your entire inner world, they begin to build one for you. They imagine your thoughts, your past, your pain, your power. That story they create becomes the emotional hook that binds them to you. But when you overtalk, when you explain every detail, you destroy that fantasy. You replace mystery with information, tension with comfort, desire with familiarity. Machiavelli warned that transparency kills authority, the same way it kills attraction. A leader who reveals too much loses control. A man who speaks too much loses polarity. Every time you open your mouth, you give away energy. You reveal insecurity, doubt, or need for approval. That's why emotional composure is the foundation of masculine allure. The man who can stay silent when provoked, calm when challenged, indifferent when tested, that's the man who radiates strength. Women don't consciously think he's powerful because he's quiet. They just feel it. They sense your groundedness. They sense that you don't need to fill space with words to feel significant. That kind of presence is addictive because your silence says, I'm not here to impress you. I'm here because I choose to be. Imagine two men. The first man talks endlessly. He cracks jokes, tells stories, tries to prove how interesting he is. She laughs politely, but soon her mind drifts. She's entertained, not intrigued. The second man listens more than he speaks. When he talks, his words are slow, deliberate. His eyes don't dart around, they stay locked in. His pauses stretch just long enough to make her heartbeat quicken. She leans in slightly, drawn to his energy. She can't explain it, but she feels it. That quiet confidence hits deeper than any clever line. That's attraction born from silence. This is the difference between men who chase and men who attract. Silence also magnifies body language. When you speak less, your movements matter more. The way you breathe, the way you look, the way you hold your posture. It all communicates without words. A slow smile, a raised eyebrow, a measured glance. These small gestures become poetry when paired with silence. They carry weight because they're rare. Machiavelli understood that true power is symbolic. People respond more to symbols than speeches. In attraction, your silence is a symbol of control, depth, and composure. Try this. Next time you're around a woman, say less than you want to. Don't rush to fill the silence. Let the air thicken a little. Notice how her body shifts, how her eyes search yours. That's not awkwardness. That's tension. And tension is chemistry's oxygen. Women get emotionally addicted to mystery mixed with composure. When you stay calm under emotional pressure, when you don't react to her tests or teasing, she feels safe yet challenged. Safe because you're stable. Challenged because she can't move you. That's the paradox women crave. Emotional security wrapped in mystery. Silence also exposes truth. When you speak less, you notice more. You start seeing how people reveal themselves through tone, hesitation, and body language. Machiavelli would say, never interrupt your enemy while he is making a mistake. In attraction, never interrupt a woman revealing her true self. Watch, learn, adapt. Observation gives you insight, what she values, what triggers her, what excites her. When you know this, your words, when you finally speak, carry precision. They hit the right emotional target because you studied her first. The man who speaks before observing wastes his power. The man who observes before speaking multiplies it. That's why a silent man feels dangerous, because you can't read him. He's unpredictable, and unpredictability breeds fascination. But silence is not passive. It's not about being withdrawn or cold. It's active control. It's presence without performance. It's energy focused inward instead of scattered outward. You can speak with your eyes. You can speak with your stillness. You can communicate desire without saying a word. In fact, some of the most electric moments between a man and a woman happen in silence, when both are aware of each other's breathing, when the air feels heavy with unspoken emotion. That's where attraction reaches its peak, not in conversation, but in energy exchange. Words can describe attraction. Silence makes you feel it. Now, understand this. Women are drawn to mystery, but they stay for strength. Silence without inner strength feels empty. But when silence comes from power, from a mind at peace, from a man who knows himself, it feels magnetic. So cultivate inner stillness. Don't rush to prove, explain, or defend. When she tests you, smile. When she flirts, observe. When she asks a question, pause before answering. That pause alone can be more seductive than 1,000 words. Because your calm says, I'm in control of myself, therefore I don't need to control you. And that energy disarms her completely. In modern dating, constant communication has killed mystery. Texting, calls, social media, everyone is accessible all the time. But accessibility breeds boredom. If you want to stand out, reintroduce silence. Be the man who doesn't always respond instantly. The man who replies with purpose, not reflex. The man whose attention feels earned. Machiavelli would say, make yourself scarce. Scarcity creates value. Your silence is your scarcity. When you speak less, you create demand. Let others rush to fill the void. You simply watch. Let them expose their emotions while you maintain composure. The one who speaks less always holds more power. Visualize the cinematic moment. Slow motion scenes of a woman glancing across the room, her eyes drawn to a man standing still, observing quietly. He doesn't speak. He just watches, half smile on his lips, confidence radiating through calmness. The world around them moves, but he remains unmoved. She can't look away because silence isn't absence, it's gravity. So speak less, watch more. Not because you're afraid to talk, but because you understand the value of mystery. Not because you're shy, but because you know silence speaks louder. Let your eyes do what words can't. Let your stillness make her heart race. Because when you master silence, you master perception. And when you master perception, you master attraction. The louder the world becomes, the rarer silence grows. Be that rarity, because the man who speaks less isn't empty, he's powerful. And the man who watches more doesn't lose, he learns. Speak less, watch more. Because silence isn't weakness, it's your most seductive weapon. Machiavelli once said, absence sharpens love, presence strengthens it. He wasn't talking about romance, he was talking about strategy. He understood a truth that most people forget. The mind values what it cannot easily have. What is always near becomes invisible. What is suddenly gone becomes sacred. In attraction, this is the most powerful law. Distance creates desire. When you withdraw, you activate one of the oldest instincts in human psychology, the fear of loss. Women don't chase love, they chase what they fear losing. The Machiavellian man knows that obsession doesn't come from constant attention. It comes from the sudden absence of it. He doesn't disappear to punish. He disappears to recalibrate value. He knows that in the silence of his absence, her mind will do the work for him. Because when you're always there, she stops noticing your presence. But when you're gone, she feels the echo of it everywhere. Every relationship begins with abundance. Messages, laughter, attention. It feels alive, intoxicating. But then something shifts. Familiarity creeps in. The excitement fades into comfort, and comfort decays into indifference. That's when the Machiavellian man makes his move. Not by chasing, not by begging, but by withdrawing. He understands that the most powerful move in attraction isn't pursuit, it's retreat. Pulling away doesn't weaken your bond, it intensifies it. It creates space for imagination, for longing, for reflection. Psychology calls this the scarcity effect. When something becomes less available, its perceived value skyrockets. The same principle applies to your time, your energy, your attention. When you pull these things away, the woman's mind goes into survival mode. She replays memories, wonders what went wrong, and starts idealizing you. Your silence becomes louder than words. Your distance becomes a mirror reflecting her desire. But withdrawal isn't about manipulation, it's about restoring polarity. You see, attraction thrives on tension. Too much closeness kills it. Too much comfort dissolves the mystery. When you're always there, you rob her of the emotional contrast that fuels desire. It's like light and shadow. One means nothing without the other. Presence means nothing without absence. Machiavelli would say that power must fluctuate to remain effective. Too much power invites rebellion. Too little invites disrespect. The same balance applies in love. Too much availability breeds complacency. Too much distance breeds insecurity. The key is strategic withdrawal, knowing when to pull back so your absence hits like thunder. Let's paint the picture. Imagine this. She's used to hearing from you every day. The texts, the calls, the comfort of knowing you're there. Then, one day, silence. No explanation, no drama, just distance. You're focused elsewhere. You've withdrawn your energy. At first, she shrugs it off. She thinks you'll come back. But as hours turn into days, her certainty begins to crack. She replays conversations. She checks her phone. Every silence feels heavier. That's when obsession starts, because obsession is born from uncertainty. The mind craves closure, and when it doesn't get it, it loops endlessly. Your absence becomes the loop. She starts imagining reasons, creating stories, blaming herself, defending you, all while you remain silent. That silence makes you larger than life. She begins to see you everywhere, in songs, in memories, in dreams. She starts missing not just you, but the feeling of being wanted by you. That's the power of withdrawal. It makes her realize what your presence really meant. There's a psychological law called value contrast. It means we only understand the worth of something when it's compared to its absence. Comfort blinds us. Distance wakes us. When you're always near, your presence becomes routine. But when you disappear, you force her mind to confront the void. That void amplifies your value. Think of it like fire. Too much wood suffocates the flame, but with space and air, it burns brighter. Your distance is that air. It reignites the desire that routine has dimmed. Machiavelli knew this truth centuries ago, the power of absence. He wrote that a prince should make himself desired, not through constant visibility, but through controlled scarcity. Let people feel your absence so that your return feels like sunlight after storm. In modern dating, men fear losing women. They cling, over-text, over-explain. But every act of desperation destroys attraction. Why? Because it communicates weakness. Withdrawal communicates the opposite, strength. It says, I am not dependent on your presence for my peace. That calm detachment is intoxicating. Because in a world where men chase, the man who withdraws becomes a mystery. She doesn't understand it, and that confusion becomes fascination. Women get emotionally addicted to unpredictability. The moment you break routine, their brains light up with dopamine. They crave resolution, but your distance denies it. That denial builds obsession. It's not about ignoring her. It's about shifting focus back to yourself, your goals, your purpose, your empire. While she's spiraling in emotion, you're rising in discipline. Your absence tells her, I have a world beyond you. And that's the most attractive message a man can send. Let's go deeper. The push-pull dynamic is one of the oldest seduction strategies in existence. It's the dance between closeness and distance. Push, you connect, engage, spark emotion. Pull, you step back, create longing. Let her energy rise toward you. Most men only push. They overinvest. They give affection, validation, presence, until it loses meaning. But the Machiavellian man balances both. He gives warmth, then withdraws. He allows the emotional high, then replaces it with quiet. That fluctuation creates emotional addiction, because the mind associates love with the relief that follows distance. The reunion becomes a reward. It's not the constant attention that creates love, it's the contrast. When you finally return after withdrawing, she doesn't just miss you, she's grateful. That gratitude turns into deeper emotional dependency. But remember, withdrawal only works if your absence is powerful. It must feel intentional, not reactive, calm, not cold, strategic, not emotional. If you vanish out of anger or insecurity, it loses effect. But if you disappear with purpose, décontracté, focused on your growth, your goals, your mission, it hits differently. Because she senses that you're not trying to prove a point. You're simply living your purpose. Your silence feels confident. Your absence feels earned. That's why the Machiavellian man is unbothered by temporary distance. He knows that real power is never in holding on. It's in being willing to let go. Visualize the cinematic tone of this rule. The room is dimly lit. She's sitting alone, scrolling through old messages, rewatching your last video call. The sound of your laughter plays in her memory, echoing faintly. The music is low, melancholic. She closes her eyes, missing the calmness you brought. Meanwhile, you're elsewhere, detached, focused, rebuilding. Not bitter, not broken, just distant, like a man walking deeper into his purpose. You don't post, you don't explain. You've become a ghost wrapped in composure. And that image of you living untouched by emotion burns in her mind. That's obsession. Not because you chased it, but because you left space for it to grow. Withdrawal also resets balance. When you pull away, you give her the chance to reflect on her behavior. If she's taken you for granted, your absence teaches her consequence. It shifts power back in your favor without saying a word. Because silence is accountability. Distance is the language of strength. When you stop showing up, she starts asking questions. When you stop giving, she starts offering. When you stop chasing, she starts chasing. It's human nature, the law of psychological reversal. But never withdraw as revenge. Withdraw as evolution. You're not teaching her a lesson. You're reclaiming your energy. You're reminding yourself that your time, attention, and love are valuable currencies. And not everyone deserves unlimited access to them. When you master this, your presence becomes sacred. She'll crave it, respect it, and fear losing it again. Because women don't obsess over men who need them. They obsess over men they can't fully have. Machiavelli wrote that a wise ruler keeps people slightly uncertain of his favor. That uncertainty makes them loyal. Similarly, a wise man keeps a woman slightly uncertain of his attention. That uncertainty keeps her invested. You must understand, love without contrast becomes comfort. Comfort without tension becomes boredom. Boredom kills desire. So learn the art of vanishing with purpose. Pull away to rebuild your power. Let her miss the silence, the strength, the steadiness that only you bring. When she realizes how peaceful your presence felt, only after it's gone, the obsession begins. Distance is not the end of attraction, it's the beginning of longing. Because longing is love's shadow. Darker, deeper, and far more powerful. So don't fear walking away. Fear staying too long when your presence no longer inspires desire. Withdraw when you must, not as a game but as a principle. Because a man who can leave, calmly, silently, without bitterness, is a man no one forgets. Visual tone, dark cinematic scenes, a woman lying awake scrolling through old photos, flashbacks of laughter, slow motion touches, the sound of rain against windows. She reaches for her phone, then stops. Her eyes close. She exhales. The screen fades to black. Meanwhile, the man walks through a city at night, quiet, detached, his mind elsewhere. He doesn't look back. The world feels colder without him. That's how obsession is born, not through presence, but through absence, because distance builds desire, and withdrawal turns memory into longing. In a world driven by reaction, the man who stays calm becomes a mystery, and mysteries always draw curiosity. Machiavelli understood one truth that most men still ignore. Emotions are not meant to control you. They are meant to serve you. Every powerful man in history, every king, strategist, or conqueror shared one common trait: the ability to remain composed when others lost control. And in the game of attraction, this rule becomes your most dangerous weapon. Most men lose women not because they lack charm, looks, or success, but because they lose control of themselves. They argue, overreact, chase, or try to prove their worth. They let emotions dictate behavior. In the moment you become emotional, you become predictable. Machiavelli wrote, "He who conquers himself conquers all." That is the essence of true power, not in conquering kingdoms or people, but in conquering your own impulses. When you control emotion, you stop chasing validation. You stop trying to make her feel something because you already embody what she's seeking. Emotional control is magnetic. A man who doesn't react instantly creates emotional tension. Women can't read him. They sense depth, and that depth becomes addictive because unpredictability is the birthplace of attraction. Imagine this. She throws a test at you. Maybe she gets distant, flirty with someone else, or questions your intentions. Most men panic. They text more, call more, explain more. But the Machiavellian man smiles, observes, and remains unshaken. He doesn't chase emotions, he watches them. That calm detachment says one thing: you don't define my state, I do. And in that moment, power shifts. She feels it. She feels his control, his silence, his steady energy, and it pulls her in deeper. Because women don't fall for men who react, they fall for men who remain solid when everything else shakes. A woman's emotions move like waves, rising, crashing, unpredictable. But when she meets a man whose energy stays grounded, she naturally synchronizes to him. Your calm becomes her safety. Your steadiness becomes her anchor. That's why emotional control isn't coldness. It's mastery. You don't suppress emotion, you command it. Machiavelli believed emotions should be used like tools, strategically, not impulsively. When you display anger, it should be measured. When you show affection, it should be earned. You must never let emotions leak randomly, because every expression of feeling reveals leverage. The less you expose, the more others project. And projection builds fascination. Think of a lion. It doesn't roar every time it sees a threat. It watches. It calculates. Its silence is not weakness. It's awareness. That's masculine composure. And in human dynamics, especially attraction, the same rule applies. The man who can hold his emotional center while everyone else spins out of control becomes the gravitational force in every room. Let's break this down psychologically. Women are biologically wired to seek emotional stability in a partner. It signals protection, strength, and confidence. When a man stays calm, her brain interprets it as dominance, safety through control. That's why emotionally reactive men repel women, because instability equals danger, but composure equals power. And the paradox is, the calmer you are, the more emotionally invested she becomes. You see, when you don't react, she starts reacting for you. She starts wondering what you feel, what you think, why you're not chasing. That uncertainty triggers curiosity, and curiosity breeds desire. She begins to chase the calm she can't shake off. This is the essence of psychological control, not manipulation, but mastery of presence. Now, emotional control doesn't mean you stop feeling. It means you learn to use your feelings consciously. You learn to breathe through tension, to observe your reactions without acting on them. When she argues, you don't mirror her chaos. You mirror stillness. When she pulls away, you don't panic. You let the silence do the talking. Your absence becomes louder than words. Your peace becomes a test she can't pass. Women often test men emotionally, not because they enjoy chaos, but because they subconsciously seek strength. They want to feel that your mood, your confidence, your direction can't be shaken. If you pass that test, not by winning an argument, but by staying unmoved, she begins to see you differently. You shift from man I can manipulate to man I must respect. Respect is the foundation of desire. Without it, attraction fades. Every time you react impulsively, you surrender power. But every time you respond calmly, you reclaim it. Reaction is emotional slavery. Response is emotional leadership. Machiavelli would tell you, emotion is your servant, not your ruler. And the man who remembers this commands not only himself, but the world around him. Picture this scene. A woman accuses, cries, tries to provoke a response, but you stand there steady. You don't match her frequency, you listen. You let her emotions exhaust themselves. And then with calm eyes and a low voice, you speak, not to prove, but to guide. That single moment shifts the dynamic forever. Because leadership is not loud, it's calm authority. In relationships, emotional control builds polarity. When you are the calm within her storm, she feels safe and fascinated at the same time. Your presence soothes her chaos yet challenges her ego. She can't figure you out, and that confusion keeps her attached. Every strong emotional bond is built on a rhythm of tension and release, and your emotional control gives you full command of that rhythm. Modern men fail because they confuse sensitivity with weakness. Being emotionally aware is strength. Being emotionally reactive is slavery. Machiavelli's wisdom teaches that you can feel deeply, but still remain untouchable. You can love without losing yourself. You can care without clinging. You can express without exposing your entire core. That's the art of restraint, and restraint is the language of kings. A Machiavellian man doesn't suppress love, he refines it. He understands that passion without control is chaos. So he channels emotion through purpose. He turns heartbreak into focus, desire into discipline, longing into leadership. Every feeling becomes fuel. That's what makes him different. While others drown in emotion, he learns to surf it. The deeper truth? Emotional control is freedom, because the moment you stop being controlled by external triggers, by what she says, does, or feels, you become untouchable. You stop living reactively. You start living deliberately. Every word, every silence, every action becomes intentional. And women can feel that energy. The difference between a man driven by impulse and a man driven by purpose. Machiavelli would say that power belongs to those who remain calm when others panic. In attraction, the same law applies. When she pulls away, you don't chase. When she gets emotional, you don't match it. You stay grounded, because true dominance isn't loud. It's silent certainty. It's knowing that whatever happens, you remain centered. Control your emotions, and you control your image. Control your image, and you control perception. Control perception, and you control attraction itself. That's why emotional mastery is the final rule, because all previous rules depend on it. Without emotional control, mystery turns into anxiety, distance becomes insecurity, and silence becomes weakness. But with control, all those qualities turn into power. In the end, it's simple. The world and women follow the man who leads himself. Emotional control is not about detachment from feeling, it's about ownership of energy. The man who conquers himself doesn't need to prove dominance. He radiates it. And in that calm, unshakable presence lies the essence of Machiavellian attraction. In the end, every man must face one unspoken truth. Attraction was never about love. It was always about energy. The quiet tension between control and surrender, the eternal dance of power. From the moment you meet a woman, she isn't drawn to your words. She's pulled by your energy. She's reading your calm, your silence, your presence. Because every woman, whether she admits it or not, desires a man she cannot control. That's where true magnetism begins. Not in effort, but in command. Machiavelli never wrote about romance. He wrote about human nature, about leverage, perception, and the art of control. He understood what most men still don't, that people don't follow love, they follow strength. They don't crave comfort, they crave power. And the man who learns to master emotion, timing, and distance becomes irresistible not because he tries, but because he doesn't. So let's bring everything full circle, the 5 hidden rules of Machiavellian attraction. Rule 1, control the frame, never chase. He who chases loses. The moment you chase validation, you lose power. The man who controls the frame controls the world. Like a king on his throne, he doesn't run toward attention, he commands it. His silence creates gravity. His calm becomes the center of her storm. Rule 2, mystery over availability. Curiosity is the oxygen of desire. Once you are fully known, you are no longer desired. Keep parts of yourself sacred. Machiavelli warned that men crave novelty more than comfort, and women crave the same. So be unpredictable. Let her wonder what you're thinking. Mystery is not distance, it's depth. It's what makes her imagination work overtime long after you've walked away. Rule 3, speak less, watch more. Power isn't in what you say, it's in what you hold back. The more you talk, the more you reveal. The more you reveal, the more predictable you become. A silent man forces the world to project value onto him. Your stillness, your gaze, your control, they all speak louder than any sentence ever could. Women don't get addicted to words, they get addicted to energy. Rule 4, withdraw to create obsession. Desire is born from distance. Presence makes her safe. Absence makes her crave. When you pull away, her mind fills the silence with fantasy. She replays your words, your looks, your quiet. Scarcity multiplies value. It always has. Machiavelli said, absence sharpens love. And when you know when to disappear, she learns your presence was never guaranteed. It was a privilege. Rule 5, control emotion, command attraction. The final rule, the hardest and most powerful. The man who cannot control himself can control nothing. Emotional mastery is the foundation of all attraction. When she screams, you stay calm. When she tests you, you smile. When she pulls away, you remain centered. You are the calm in her chaos, the fire she can't extinguish. Machiavelli's truth echoes. He who conquers himself conquers all. 5 rules. 1 truth. Control is the currency of attraction. The man who governs himself governs desire. The one who leads his energy leads her emotions. That's why Machiavellian attraction isn't manipulation. It's mastery. It's not about pretending to be powerful. It's about becoming power itself. Now think about how most men lose the game. They text too much, they explain too soon, they reveal too easily. They bleed emotion where they should show restraint. And every time they do, they surrender power. But not you, not anymore. You've learned the laws. And once you've seen the code, you can't unsee it. From this point on, your silence will speak, your distance will draw, your composure will lead. Because power isn't loud, it's quiet. It doesn't chase, it attracts. And one day when she's sitting in her silence, wondering why she can't stop thinking about you, she'll realize it was never about what you said or what you did. It was about how you made her feel when you said nothing at all. That's the Machiavellian paradox. You control most when you seem to control least. You attract most when you stop seeking approval. And you win her heart not by trying to possess it, but by being the man she can never possess. Because in the end, she doesn't beg for the man she loves. She begs for the man she can't control. He who conquers himself conquers all, and once Machiavelli.